I know that some in our audience know the finer points of hockey.
The Chris Johnston Show.
We are your friends.
The biggest stories, bringing you inside the game.
What did you hear?
The Chris Johnston Show.
What is going on?
Here's Chris with your host, Julian McKenzie.
Part of the game.
CJ, it's good to see your eyeballs as opposed to what the last episode was like, where you wore your sunglasses the whole time.
Oh, man. And the truth is, I need the sunglasses more today than I needed them Tuesday.
Why do you need them today?
I got into the wine last night.
Oh, okay. All right. Vino CJ.
This post-deadline thing, it's real. Like, the last few weeks have been just nutty. Working every day, late, early, just a lot of demands. So you need these few days where you just lick your wounds and chill. But, it was a bit on Tuesday because I was actually feeling fine today. I was like, oh, man, I actually just need the sunglasses.
Oh, man. But also, one other thing I want to mention before we get into some of the topics I have today. Do you have that bear hat that you sometimes wear on some of the podcasts? People keep asking, even though I believe in a much earlier episode, we revealed where you got the hat. But please tell everyone where you can get the bear hat that you wear on the podcast from time to time.
Right. And we should be clear, this is not an ad. I purchased this hat. I've actually purchased 5 or 6 hats from this company. It's called North Standard Trading Post. It's in Parkdale in Toronto, but you can place orders online. I know some people have ordered even from overseas from them. I believe it's a husband and wife that just have a clothing shop. They got these cool hats. I actually buy beard oil from them. They've also got some cool little like t-shirts for kids and stuff, like really cute bear t-shirts if you have a smaller size person you like to buy for. So that's a totally not an ad, but support local, and they're a great company, and I love this hat. This hat, I'm not kidding, more than anything I own. They keep it on the street. People ask me about it. Like a guy at the LCBO, I don't know, a month ago, was told me, he's like, oh, I got to get that hat. And then the next time I saw him there, he's like, yeah, I got my kid one. So anyway, I'm trying to send North Standard all this business.
Hey, man, North Standard, if you are interested in sponsoring this podcast,
hit up Adam Wild. He's the businessman.
Yeah, he is the businessman for that. And while we're on the subject of products, have you seen, well, I mean, obviously you've seen them. What do you make of these Toronto Maple Leafs jerseys designed by Justin Bieber? It seems like some of the older crowd are all like, I don't know about some of these jerseys being reversible and looking like the Boston Bruins, but some of the younger people might like it. Where do you stand on those jerseys?
I thought they were sick. Honestly, I thought they looked awesome. So, I'm far from your fashionista. I mean, you didn't even ask about this sweatshirt here, but
is that from like your high school?
Let me tell you,
high school?
This is my high school. My high school is out of business. My high school doesn't exist anymore. So this might be one of one that exists at this point in time. So, you can't just be going and buying that at North Standard or going and buying one of these Bieber jerseys. But I love the Leafs Bieber jersey. I thought it looked cool. I thought it would have been neat if they reversed it mid-game and wore the black and yellow for a while, but I'm guessing there's rules about that. They would have to change their socks, whatever. But I think it'd be neat at some point in the future if they play with the reverse jersey. I have no idea if that's possible, if that's in the works, but yeah, I think people got to lighten up a little bit. Like jerseys, like it's all, let's face it, it's marketing. Like, I'm not a huge fan of international soccer. Like I sort of loosely follow the Premiership and stuff, but those teams change their colors. They do everything, right? And I assume it's because someone's buying them and it's interesting. So, I think I like where the NHL has gone the last few years, where there's more jerseys. Like each team has up to 4 sweaters, I think, at times. That makes a lot of sense to me. I think there's a case even for more and take some risks. Like, yeah, it's not going to be to everyone's liking, but I think it's interesting and it's good for the marketing, baby.
And it's not even like some random bum, design the jerseys. It's Justin Bieber. And I get that people are like, Justin Bieber, this pop artist, whatever. We're talking about one of the most known artists in the world who happens to be a big Toronto Maple Leafs fan. Like, I think this is a pretty big deal. And it's no surprise that it ended up being the best-selling jersey yesterday on the NHL's website. Like, that's cool.
Remember the Drake jerseys that he did for the Raptors? Like,
yeah.
Why not? Come on, this is the world. Again, lighten up. Like, if you really I get it. Okay, maybe it doesn't meet your eye, but I don't think it's that big a deal. Like, I don't know how many Facebook uncles are out there yelling about this, but let's like enough. let's have some fun. Honestly, I think it's great, and it's such a natural fit with the Leafs. Obviously, Matthews and those guys are legit buddies with Bieber, go on vacations together and stuff. So, I think it's good for the league, frankly, to have more of those kind of partnerships. And again, this one isn't forced. It's not some made up thing. It's the guy loves his team.
Yeah, man. Also, I just want to shout out the SDP because Adam gave Steve, like he bought him like one of the jerseys. They like showed them off during the episode. I just want to say that was just like really cool that they were just able to do that. And they were all just kind of like wearing those jerseys. That really looks like something I could see myself just like going to a party. Like I'm wearing a hoodie right now and I could just like put on a jersey like right above it. Like I don't know if you ever rock that style, but like I like that style. I don't get to do it as often as I'd like, but like that's something I could see myself wearing, especially with the yellow on top. Like I like that style.
I don't know the last time I wore any jersey for any sport. I'll wear a hat maybe, but not. I feel like you get to a certain age, the jersey's a tough look. I don't know what that age is, but I feel like I'm north of it, whatever the cutoff is. I did have a Dallas Cowboys jersey because I'm a big Cowboys fan, but even that I would never wear in public. I would be like once or twice a year, I'll go watch a game at Pierre LeBrun's house and I would like wear it in his living room with him. And then I would change out of it and walk home and not be wearing it in public. So I'm not a big jersey guy. The last time I wore a jersey was when I got given the Dangle Navy jersey.
Yes.
We started this podcast. I was actually thinking I'm going to wear that for one of the shows at some point.
I think I have one on the way. I was asked for my size and what name I want on it. So I am led to believe one is coming. I think on a previous episode I mentioned
did you go last
my own name, and I forget what number I asked for, but like on a previous episode I said that I think somewhere I wanted to get one of the jerseys with the SDPN shop website, which by the way you can get some great stuff there. I asked about one and I just missed the because they sold out really quickly. I just missed. And like a couple days later, I got a message from Jesse being like, hey, there's one on the way. So I'm just sitting here waiting for my jersey to show up. So when I get mine, we should wear our jerseys.
All right. I'm in.
Let's do it. All right. The Evgeny Dadonov trade. We had a whole episode titled The Dadonov Debacle. The last time we did this, you were, wearing your tinted colored glasses that time, but you can see clearer now.
On that episode, eh?
I don't know about a bit loopy. I'd say you had no filter. You were loose.
I'm still getting like people in my DMs like talking about it. Like everyone thought I took an edible or something, which I can tell you 100%. Like 100%. I've not taken an edible since the Saddle Dome situation a few years ago. Like I'm steering clear of that. Unless we ever want to like take one and then do an episode together and we'll make a point of it. But
I don't know if that's a good idea at all. I do not think that's a good idea at all. Because at that point, I don't know if I want to even record anything.
What happens if when we do the live show in Montreal at the draft? We can.
Oh, I will. I mean, alcohol is one thing, but like, I'm definitely not doing an edible then. Absolutely not.
I don't really want to do it either because based on my one experience, I was like a puddle of fear. So I don't really want to be messing with that. But anyway, I was 100% not high, even though that like so many people on YouTube, like every comment was just like, CJ is high. I've only watched 50 seconds and he is high. I was like, no, CJ just didn't sleep for like 3 weeks. And his brain power is spent. I'm still like, I'm useless right now, man. Like this Dadonov situation, like I feel like I'm living in a time warp. A trade went through that didn't happen. Like what's going on?
I know that is just really weird to process. And at the point when we were talking about it initially on the last episode, we still didn't know if the trade was going to go through. And now we know that it has been officially waived off, and not even just like, just someone just tweeting out it's not out. Like the NHL had to send out a release to everyone saying that the trade has been waived off. The NHL says the NTC wasn't the no trade clause aspect of this wasn't complied with. And he's supposed to play tonight against the Nashville Predators. Awkward.
Get this. So I was told they were in Minnesota, I believe, on Monday, the day of the deadline. I believe he was trying to play that night. Like he was insistent that he had this no trade clause. And I believe he expected to play that night. Obviously, it didn't, the trade had gone through. There was the process that took a couple days before it was reversed. And he ultimately flew back to Vegas. But I think he wanted to play that night, as awkward as that is, even when they're trying to trade him out of town to a place on his no trade list. Like, what a strange situation. I feel for Dadonov, honestly. We're talking about a guy with a family. You know, we talked about sort of the human side of the deadline before, but imagine this, where they're like, no, we just traded you to a place that you said you can't go on your no trade list. And I'm no expert in income tax things, but, you know, I punched it in on Cap Friendly, and it looks like the difference in his salary next year would be about $1 million if he was paying income tax in California versus what gets paid in Nevada. So, like, it's not nothing. And he might have other personal reasons he doesn't want to play in Anaheim too. So what a strange situation. Now he rejoins this team that obviously needs all the help it can get. Very weird. And he could still be traded, Julian, or someone else on the roster. You're able to make trades after the deadline. The player just can't play for the team when that happens. So, you know, if Vegas wants to activate Alec Martinez or Mark Stone off of LTIR before the end of the regular season, they're going to have to remove salary in some way, shape, or form. And so whether it's Dadonov or someone else, he might still get traded and his season might be done, which is just seems kind of cruel. But, you know, this is the realities of the cap world.
Thank you for pointing out that one detail I want to focus on here. I was under the impression up until yesterday that if you were traded after the deadline, you were only ineligible to play in the playoffs. But if I understand correctly, if you get traded after the deadline, you can't play the rest of the regular season and the playoffs. I don't know how long that's been a thing.
Yeah, that's correct. And it's only if you sign as a free agent after the deadline, you can play in regular season games.
Okay.
If you're a free agent, if you're like a player coming out of NCAA, you're on the team's what's called the reserve list at the deadline. So even if you sign your contract, say after your team gets beat out of the tournament, you could play in the playoffs, like we saw with Cole Caulfield, right? For example, last year in Montreal. So yeah, there's all these little wrinkles and nuances, but the truth is we might still see a trade. Maybe this year is the 1 year it makes sense because there's so many teams still in kind of cap jail or cap trouble. And let's face it, we're really talking about one team right now. It's Vegas because they have these players on LTIR. They have so many other guys injured. They're currently out of a playoff spot as we're recording this, and they've been sliding the wrong way for a good month. And so there's going to be pressure, I'm assuming. If Mark Stone can play, they're going to want to get him in the lineup. Like, I don't know where he's at health-wise with his back injury, but you would think because of how important the points are, how great of a player he is, they're going to do everything they can to get him playing, but they might have to trade someone else off the roster to do it. You know, the Golden Knights have always played a little, how do I put it? They've been so aggressive. They've added a lot of big contract players. Like, I'm not really criticizing them for it at all, but they've had cap troubles, right? I think they played something like 15 games last season in the shortened year with less than a full roster because they weren't able to have, 20 skaters dressed or 18 skaters and 2 goalies. And so, this has been a common theme there, but it's because they've stockpiled great players. They went and made the Jack Eichel trade this year, despite having Mark Stone and Alex Pietrangelo making big money and a number of others. And so they've run into some cap issues, and they probably have their biggest one on their hands right now.
So I imagine in whatever 10-team no trade clause that Evgeny Dadonov has, I'm willing to bet the Arizona Coyotes are on that list, because otherwise it should just be just an easy dump of his salary over to Arizona, who could use all they can get to whatever point they need with the cap floor, right?
Well, there's nothing easy about it though. Like, I think he's due to make $6.5 million in actual salary next season, so it's a real commitment for a team to bring him on. Now he's a useful player. Also, we're not just trading a bad contract here. This is a player that still has utility in the league, but I think that's the price of that has got to be a first round pick at this point. I mean, who's going to be doing them a favor as it stands? And at least when Anaheim, the deal that got reversed, Anaheim was getting rid of Ryan Kessler's contract, so there was salary there. They were dumping the John Moore contract, which they'd received from Boston. There's another thing: John Moore is an actual player. I mean, at this stage, in Ryan Kessler is retired without being retired. He's injured. He's not going to play hockey again. But John Moore just got reversed back to Anaheim, and then they were also getting a second round pick. So, Anaheim was sending money back the way and still getting a second round pick. I'm guessing in this scenario, whatever team is acquiring potentially, say, a Dadonov, or maybe it's Riley Smith or someone else that could be dealt, I don't think that they're sending money back. And so I think it's got to be at least a first rounder to absorb that price. And that That's a lot. So I don't know. I don't know what Vegas is going to do. Obviously, they thought they had a trade. Like it's crazy that this went through. And it's actually funny on our Sunday episode that we talked about the process of a trade call because it's very relevant to what happened here. And I've since followed up with a few, people that would do trade calls for teams, front office types. Like they said that literally like one of the first discussions, like when you talk to the central registries, they'll ask if there's any trade protection. If a player has a list, they need to see the list. Like, when Ben Chirac got traded to Florida from Montreal, he has a 10-team no trade list. Central Registry needed to see his list to ensure that Florida wasn't on it. It's a matter of procedure, but the point is it's routine. It's what happens. And so that detail somehow got missed or there's a dispute or is really eye-opening. And, we're going to the GM's meeting in a couple of days. And I wonder if this process maybe gets standardized a little bit more because there's a lot of situations, Julian, where guys have where they miss submitting their trade list and it basically gets voided. I don't know if you remember, I did a piece. I actually went to Sweden just before the lockdowns, before the pandemic, and I did a piece with Patrick Berglund. If you remember, Berglund walked away from his contract with Buffalo, and really what had happened there is there was a dispute between him and his agent about whose fault it was, but we know for sure he didn't submit a no-trade list by the deadline to St. Louis, so he lost his no-trade protection, and then they dealt him on July 1st to Buffalo. And then he went there and didn't like it. And, he'd been a Blue his whole career, 700 plus games, and he ended up walking away from a big sum of money because he just wasn't happy. But the root of the issue was they missed the deadline to submit his no trade list. There's other players that it's happened to as well. I think Mark Stahl, before he got dealt from the Rangers to Detroit, had a similar type of issue. I'm led to believe it's pretty common. In some cases, if you miss the deadline, the agent will sort of go to the team and say, hey, look, I was supposed to file this and I didn't. And sometimes the team will honor it in reverse, just in good faith. But, I just wonder if this whole system comes under scrutiny because you really can't have a trade be approved in reverse. Like at this point, it's a one-off, but you can't have this happen again. I mean, what a disaster.
At the same time, you can't have a move take place where a no trade clause, even though for whatever reason teams didn't check, is active, is still there. Like that process needs to be something needs to be done to ensure that every team, every person involved in that process knows that an NTC or an NMC is in this. Like it's mind-boggling that some team could drop the ball in terms of failing to notify another team that is out there, and we have the process that we have. Like Cat Friendly and Puckpedia exist.
Well, I got to tell you, one of the craziest things that nearly happened Monday that didn't is we had a blockbuster deal worked out to send you to the Noxie and Cax podcast. It is not 1-for-1, but you blocked that with your no trade clause. So the listeners didn't even know about that, but we had a deal. Julian for Liz Knox, straight up. The deal is 1-for-1.
Is that really it, man? That's what you guys are really going to do?
And you blocked it with your no trade. I couldn't believe it.
You're gonna just expose my business like this? Like, geez, guys.
Outrageous.
I know you're an insider. You're in the scoops, but I didn't expect you to broadcast that news. This is pretty awkward for me, man. Like, guys, like I'll tell you, I'm dealing you to the 32 Thoughts podcast after this. Like, once we get to the off season, we're gonna have to look at some things. Don't tempt me with a good time, CJ. I'm kidding. I would never consider that a good time compared to the Chris Johnston Show, especially if you're going to act like how you acted earlier this week. I mean, Jeff Merrick is definitely not going to do an episode where he's wearing sunglasses the entire time.
Freeman, like I'm on the verge of just going full loopy again. Like I have no brain power right now.
I mean, you straight up just tried to offer me to another podcast.
I know. Thought I was going to get a more professional host with Liz, but not happening.
Wow. You don't think I'm professional?
You're professional, bud. I'm just cheating. I'm just having some fun.
You better recognize. Is there any other aspect of this Dadonov story that needs to be discussed that I did not ask you before we move on?
I don't think so, no. But I will repeat. I just think it's a shitty situation for him. It sucks. But you know what? He's still in Vegas. Maybe they go on a run. They make the playoffs. They win a cup. Like, who knows? Like, Vegas is a fascinating team to me because they couldn't be more down and out. I think they have 8 or 9 injuries at the moment. Some of their star players, but if they get in, like, who's really going to want to play them? Even though this year has not gone their way, and they might miss. The fact they could miss the playoffs is wild as well. So I'm sure we'll be talking Golden Knights again at some point. They might be making a trade here after the deadline too. So They're a newsy bunch.
Actually, one other thing I'll mention here. If the Golden Knights miss the playoffs with everything going on, yes, they've had a bunch of injuries, but the way this Dadonov debacle kind of went down, does that affect Kelly McCrimmon's job security in any way? Do you envision a situation like that? Because it's still like some form of incompetence taking place over that, right?
I don't see it. I think the worst thing you can do as a team, I think, is overreact at times. And, it's something that's come up a lot in Toronto, obviously, because that team has had a lot of great regular seasons, hasn't got over the playoff hump. Like, I think there's danger in maybe reading too much into this year for Vegas. So, look, I suppose anything's possible, but the other way to look at their team, and Kelly's was part of the front office right since day one, first in an assistant's role in the last few years as the general manager, is they've been ridiculously competitive since the minute they entered the NHL. So I would think that he's built up some cachet with ownership there. And I would like to think that they're going to take a reasoned approach to, like, if you have 9 players out at any given time, like, what team can survive that? So I don't sense that he's in any trouble, but I guess we'll see how the fallout of this goes. I mean, this is still a sort of what I would call developing story or active story. Like, I think they're going to have to do some more roster juggling, and they're obviously trying to squeeze into the playoffs. And so, we'll just see how it plays out.
This show is brought to you by HelloFresh. With HelloFresh, you can get farm fresh, pre-proportioned ingredients and seasonal recipes delivered right to your doorstep. Skip all those trips to the grocery store and count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. It's exactly why it's America's #1 meal kit. It has fit and wholesome recipes for satisfying and nutritious meals that you can feel good about, with 6 recipes per week to choose from, including low-calorie and carb-conscious options. Again, just saving on those trips to the grocery store is a big plus. You can warm yourself from the inside out with limited time recipes inspired by cozy classics from around the world, like beef tenderloin and cheese fondue, or miso, sesame shrimp, and bacon ramen. They have a lot of good stuff from HelloFresh, which, again, saving on trips to go to the grocery store here. You should check out HelloFresh.com/Johnston16, and you can get up to 16 free meals and 3 free gifts. That sounds like a pretty good deal. HelloFresh.com/Johnston16. Gonna say that one last time here. HelloFresh.com/Johnston16 and use the code Johnston16 to get up to 16 free meals and 3 free gifts. That's from HelloFresh. For us to take an ad break here and talk about your balls. It's way more funny when Adam does these jokes. I don't know. Anyway, we're here to talk about the Ultra Premium Collection from Manscaped. You're going to take care of your balls. Yeah, nope, still not funny. Anyway, it's actually not for your private parts, so I don't even know why I'm even really bringing up your balls. But anyway, it's a leveled up hygiene routine with your favorite manly scent. An all-in-one skin and hair care kit for the everyday man and covers you from head to toe. Literally. Manscaped is trusted below the waist. Now trust them with the rest. Join the 4 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped by going to manscaped.com for 20% off free shipping with the code Chris21. Also, you should write in the comment section that Chris should be doing some of these ads. But I'll tell you what, he's got some of these Manscaped products. I got some of these. Adam has some. I mean, of course, dude lives off Manscaped. Why do you think he has the nice, basement that he has with the studio? That's all Manscaped, baby. Chris21 is the promo code you got to use to take advantage of the the deal that they have. They'll take you 20% off, but also the Ultra Premium Collection, which will give you some stuff that'll help you groom yourself, and not just with your balls, above the waist too. Chris21 at manscaped.com for 20% off plus free shipping. Okay, I want to bring back Leafs Corner for a couple of minutes. We are not a Maple Leafs podcast, but I have some questions and points that are about the Toronto Maple Leafs, because we did go in on the Kyle Dubas, Kyle Davidson beef that arose over the weekend, but we didn't get to touch off too much on the Harry Sateri signing / waivers / Arizona claim. We touched on it just like a little bit, but just seeing that, we could go on it a little bit more, plus seeing the SDP boys kind of go in on that as well and express their thoughts on how Kyle Dubas has had this happen to him quite a few times over the last however long. It really had me thinking, like, there's like, as an outsider, just seeing this, like, I don't know the number of how many times he's tried to sign a guy and a guy is up on waivers, right? Like, I wonder if there's like a legitimate case, if there's like some shenanigans going on here, like what's the deal with that, right?
Well, each situation is a little unique, right? But they have lost 11 players off waivers in 3.5 years, which is by far the most in the league. I think some of that is because they've signed some good depth players down their roster, and so those guys had utility somewhere else. Last year it was Jimmy Vesey and Travis Boyd. I mean, guys that have spent all this season in the NHL, like they're NHL players, and the Leafs had a tight cap situation, so they had to subject them through waivers to be able to move them up and down, and they lost those players. But there's some others, right? They had the whole goaltending situation at the start of last season with Aaron Dell, who they signed as a number 3. He got claimed before they even played a game. This one with Sateri, I think it's frustrating. I think it's frustrating for the player. This is a guy who, had to make a deal to terminate his KHL agreement. He lost more than 100,000 euros that he basically had to leave in Russia while the Russian currency crumbled and he couldn't move it out. So like he's out of pocket for this season compared to what he would. He had a great year, just won an Olympic gold medal. Now he gets a chance to join an NHL roster. And in Toronto, he felt like he maybe had a chance to play playoff games. I mean, the Leafs crease is extremely unstable right now. And so what a great opportunity for Sateri. And he chooses the Leafs. He wants to come here. And then, my understanding is there was 3 or 4 claims actually put in on him. So it wasn't just Arizona. Arizona just got him because they're at the bottom of the standings. I know Ottawa was one of the teams that attempted to claim him. And, I think for those teams, he could be an asset, right? It's a journeyman 32-year-old goaltender, but, he's making league minimum for the rest of the year. Maybe you sign him, you play him, you like him, you get him for next season at a good number. So, it's still, I guess, an opportunity for him to go play in the NHL, but I know he was disappointed by it. So I don't know that it's shenanigans, quite honestly. I mean, Arizona had made a deal. They sent Wedgwood, I think, to Dallas the day before the deadline. So they had an opening there. They re-signed Karel Vejmelka on deadline day, and they need another goalie. So, I don't think it's personal. I don't think it's targeted at Kyle Dubas. Like, I know that somewhere that seems to be out there. I think it's because people want these players. Like they claim Leafs players off waivers, yes, but then they play them in their lineup. So it's not like they claim them and stash them and just say, ha ha ha, Leafs, we got you. They're taking these guys because they're assets. I think I understand where Kyle Dubas would be frustrated though. I mean, any team could have signed Sateri. The Leafs did the work. The Leafs were the one who made that agreement, and then to just lose them, it's not ideal, but that's how the rules are written. And obviously Toronto would have known about that possibility the day they signed him.
Yeah, not to mention signing Sateri is a lot cheaper and a lot less risky as opposed to, dealing away a first-round pick to find some other goaltending option out there.
Right. Well, they could have traded a 4th-rounder for Wedgwood like Dallas did, but evidently they made the determination that they were smarter just to sign this guy. I mean, I think, look, the goaltending is voodoo stuff is actually real. Like, did we talk about Anton Forsberg, right? The last show, like he was claimed 3 times on waivers last year, and he's signing an extension. Like you never know for sure. And, I don't know that Harry Sateri, look, maybe he's only going to play 3 games for Arizona. I mean, he's still got visa issues, so he's not in North America yet. There's not much time left in the regular season, but maybe he's great. Maybe it's not going to work. But I think if you're Toronto, I mean, there's nothing ventured, nothing gained. Had he ended up on the Leafs roster at $750, they always could have just sent him to the AHL if it wasn't working out and wouldn't have hurt their cap situation or anything like that. So, I think it was a creative solution to their problem, if we call it that, or their issue. I think it was a sensible way to go, but it didn't work out. And now the ghost of Peter Mrazek reemerges.
You thought you could get rid of me?
Hey, won a game on Wednesday night. Like, goaltending is so hilarious. I mean, to me, I know that people put a lot of work. It's so fluid. Like, other than a few guys every year, are going to be great. The variance in performance and numbers, and obviously it's tied to the team too. Like, some goalies get 42 shots in a game, some get 18, and they have no control over one or the other, or they get 3 breakaways in a game or none. Like, it's it's a strange position and it's hard. I'm no expert, honestly. Like I can look at the save percentage like anyone else, or even the more, call them advanced metrics, a goal saved above expected or what have you. But I can't really evaluate a goaltender's form. It's just not my strength.
By the way, what's the general sense or feeling around how Kyle Dubas and the Leafs did at the trade deadline? I know other teams in the division did. They made some significant additions, but what's the vibe check in Toronto right now with how Kyle Dubas did?
Well, judging by my inbox, I wrote a column this week for North Star Bets and appeared in the Toronto Star. And judging by my inbox, like a lot of people are upset. I think that they felt the Leafs should have been even more aggressive. What's notable about what they did at the deadline, Julian, is they protected all of their top prospects. Made it quite clear they didn't want to trade those players. They held on to their first round pick in 2023 and 2022. And, that was done on purpose. And I think part of what we should deduce from that is I don't think Kyle Dubas believes in this idea of all in, right? Like Bill Zito is all in. Like Florida does not own a first round pick now till 2025. And he gave up a first in a deal for a pure rental in Claude Giroux and another first in a deal for a pure rental in Ben Sherratt. Now, obviously, both those players might end up re-signing in Florida, so maybe it doesn't end up being a rental situation. But at the time he's making the decision, he's only buying them for maximum, 20 regular season games and maybe 28 playoff games if they play 4 7-round series. Like, he's buying them for 48 games. And, a first-round pick, you control that player for the first 7 years of his pro career. So, I mean, conservatively, your first-round pick is worth 300 games of potential value to your team. And so I think you got to think closely about that. And so I don't know that the Leafs buy this sort of theory of all in. And so they made it clear to teams they weren't going to do the first rounder. They kind of waited out the market. They ended up getting Giordano for a second rounder and Colin Blackwell as well. And, I think that part of it is done because they don't see the wisdom in first rounders for rentals as a rule. I think secondly, there's an acknowledgement in that this is a team like this isn't the Leafs Cup window. Like as much as I know in the media, and like I'm even guilty of it too. Like we were calling this kind of this last dance sort of season. The reality is it's not that. The Leafs have 2 more years of potential cup contention because that's the amount of time Austin Matthews is under contract. And I think as long as Austin Matthews is on the Maple Leafs in the prime of his career, they've got a chance to do something special because he is ridiculous. Ridic, as the kids say these days. So, boom. Shout out Easter egg for those that listen to every episode. But the point is that, I think that there's an acknowledgement there. They need guys on entry-level deals to come up in these next 2 years and help them with their cap situation. So I think it was an interesting deadline. I like the Giordano ad. Definitely makes her blue line better today. But, if we're doing the vibe check, it's never going to be enough for some. I get that. Look, the goaltending thing has to be, that's the bomb that could blow up in their face. Like they could lose a first round series with a bunch of 6-4 losses because they can't get a save. Like that is a possible outcome that's now in the universe. I think it all depends on what you think of Marc-Andre Fleury. Obviously, that's the one player we know if they were willing to deal a conditional first like Minnesota, they probably could have got him and chose not to. But I don't mind the deadline personally, but it's going to be a spicy few weeks here in the center of the hockey universe because I think the fan base is ready to boil over again if this doesn't go well. And, there's no reason really to predict it not to go well, other than they're probably going to play Tampa in round 1 or maybe Florida or maybe Boston. Either way, it's going to be a tough matchup. But, Matthews and Marner are having outrageously good seasons. And I know that they were the centerpieces of a lot of the criticism in last year's playoffs against Montreal because they didn't produce offense. And so, I'm not seeing anything that won't say they're going to have a big playoffs this year. I mean, Matthews scores every game pretty much. So we'll see. It's going to be some narrative is going to be written here in the next few weeks. And I'm sure people will look back at the deadline if it doesn't go well for the Leafs and say there was more that should have been done.
First round pick should have been given up, I guess. But then
maybe they draft a player of that pick. I mean, look, this is what Kyle Dubas gets paid for, right? Those are decisions you have to make. Like Bill Zito made very clear. Like Bill Zito is the guy just playing fast and easy at the casino right now. He's like, take all my hundreds, let's go, let her ride. The Leafs are a little more conservative, and time will write the story about who was right or not.
Okay, I have one other thing I want to get to before we get to stick taps for this week. So I thought Shea Weber, the contract, would be moved by Monday. And on the SCP again, I didn't think I'd get to a point where I'd be talking about the Steve Dangle podcast, and Steve Dangle would try to be the insider and talk about the little birdies that are talking in his ear. You should probably get that checked. But he says that I think the Canadiens tried at the very least to move him to Arizona. And I don't think that's necessarily a surprise, but I do have questions as to why that move might not have worked and what aspects of his contract or with regards to his money or however much money is owed to him over the next 4 years might cause the Coyotes to kind of say, hold up, but then also go to Brian Little's contract, who is owed a little bit more, even though it's only for the next, I think, 2 years.
Yeah, so the Canadiens definitely tried to move Shea Weber's contract. I think in a perfect world, they don't want to be operating in LTIR every year, and that's kind of the position they're going to be in as long as Weber remains unable to play hockey due to his injuries and he's on their books. And so I think there's a chance for them to do it again in the offseason. You know, my understanding of his specific case is that this came down to an insurance issue. I'm not sure that it's the full value of the dollars owed to him in his contract are covered by insurance. And so that might be one difference with Little in terms of, you know, perhaps his contract is fully insured. And so I think that that's partially what held it up. But also, you know, the Coyotes got a pretty good NCAA prospect by the name of Nathan Smith, along with Brian Little's contract. So I think the return could have influenced what went down. But, you know, I still think there's an opportunity for the Canadiens to move Weber's contract because the actual money due is, I think, $6 million on a year deal. It goes down, you know, it goes down to almost league minimum in terms of actual contract salary due because it was one of those cheat contracts before the loophole was closed. And so, and to be fair, it was signed, people won't remember this, by the Philadelphia Flyers as an offer sheet to Nashville. So, I mean, when I say it's a cheat deal, it wasn't Montreal acquired the deal, but they didn't know they shouldn't be blamed for what's remaining there. So I think the Canadiens will probably still try to move Weber's contract in the offseason. I don't know how close it got. There definitely were pretty intensive discussions. I think there was actually a much bigger trade discussed between the Canadiens and the Coyotes. It wasn't just the contract for, you know, picks or whatever. You know, it wasn't a deal like the one they made with Winnipeg for Brian Little's deal. I think there's roster players and everything involved. So, you know, it was a complex deal that didn't happen, but perhaps it's one that can be, you know, revisited at the draft, because that's often what happens. I mean, sometimes teams talk about a certain collection of players or assets for a long time and try, and they can't find the fit. And over time, it gets a little more seamless. So maybe these teams will connect on that again, because the Coyotes have so few players under contract next year. You know, they're going to need help reaching the cap floor. And that's what Brian Little's deal is going to do. And maybe there's room for Weber there too, because there's just not a lot of players making a lot of money in Arizona. And, you know, they're still in a rebuild. Like they're looking at a 3-year rebuild from now, like where they're probably not going to be that competitive in terms of trying to make the playoffs. So they're going to need all the help they can get to make sure that they get to the salary cap floor.
To clarify something, yes, it is exactly $6 million over the next 4 years owed to Shea Weber in terms of actual money. And yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if the Canadiens would make more moves at the draft. And I'll say this, the general feel in Montreal with Kent Hughes and how he handled his very first trade deadline as GM, a lot of people a lot of fans I know were still very content. I think if he had moved the Weber contract, that would have probably been like the equivalent of like a grand slam. That might have been like a 10 for them, but a lot of people are rating him like a 7 or an 8 because it was able to get so many prospects and draft picks.
He's still standing on third base and they're cheering for him like he hit a triple. So that's not a bad outcome.
Hey, look, considering the state of baseball and how there's a lack of it in Montreal, a lot of people would cheer for singles and doubles whenever they could get them in this city. So not surprised that people are cheering for a triple. And in this case, to bring it back to hockey, Kent Hughes and the rest of how they've done it, they brought a lot of good feelings back to the Montreal Canadiens as opposed to what they were feeling a couple months ago. Let's
call this the honeymoon period, though. And I'm not picking.
Yeah, it is.
Builds, but like the teardown is always way easier than the build.
That and there's a prospect in their system that has caused a lot of fear and anger with a section of people. And depending on how they deal with that kid, that could change a lot of things. You are absolutely right. They are in the honeymoon phase right now. And depending on how things go in the summer, that could change a lot of different things.
But here's the thing, though. You're talking about Logan Mailloux, I assume.
Yes.
They didn't draft him. Like
They didn't.
He's an organizational asset. And there's some people that think he might be their best prospect in their whole system. Like, I'm not a prospect expert. I've just had that said to me by people that know more about that. And so it will be a tricky situation to handle from an organizational standpoint. I'm not sure what they're going to do, if he'll sign a pro contract or what. But that's that one's going to keep an eye on that one.
Yeah, like I kind of see that, obviously being in Montreal, focused on the Canadiens. I kind of see that as like this dark cloud that's in the distance. You're at a part, you're in some part of the world where it's just sunny, and then you look out in the distance and you see these dark clouds are coming towards you. You just kind of enjoy the sunshine and the lack of rain before that darkness eventually shows up. That's how I kind of envision the situation for the Montreal Canadiens, because I think when it gets to that point, some very interesting questions will be asked. But anyway, that is a bridge we'll cross when it comes time for us to cross that bridge. If you're the type of person who's always thinking about new business ideas or wondering what the next side hustle I should spin up is, you should check out the My First Million podcast. The hosts, Shan Puri and Sam Parr, have each built 8-figure businesses and sold them to Amazon and HubSpot. And each week, they brainstorm business ideas that you can start tomorrow. These can be side hustles that make you a few grand a month, a big $1 billion idea, or anything in between. They also chat with founders, celebrities, and billionaires and get them to open up about business ideas they've never shared before. So make sure to check out My First Million. That's My First Million on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. People, it's Julian here with a message from Athletic Greens. Right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient and daily nutrition, especially heading into the flu and cold season. It's not a fun time. In just one scoop and a cup of water every day, that's it. That's literally it. That's amazing. No need for a million different other pills and supplements and all that extra stuff. Athletic Greens is it. To make it easy, Athletic Greens will give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your very first purchase. All you have to do, visit athleticgreens.com/Johnston. It's CJ's last name. Like, how easy? It doesn't get any easier than that. athleticgreens.com/Johnston to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. Stick taps for this week. It's the segment that we do usually every Thursday, where we show some love to someone either in the hockey community or just any community, really, just someone who just affected us in a way. I'm going to bring out the green goalie paddle for this week's edition, even though the person I'm going to give the stick tap to was a forward. One of the best things I saw this week came on TSN Trade Center, which, of course, CJ, you were a part of. Cheryl Pounder.
You're saying that was the best thing you saw this week? Thank you.
I said one of the best things I saw this week. You didn't let me finish.
You liked my tie. I had a nice tie for deadline day.
It was okay, but I don't think the way that you looked and the way you handled your business compared to the moment where, Cheryl Pounder, excellent job on the broadcast, and also shout out to Haley Salvian, teaming at The Athletic, for doing really well as well. But Cheryl Pounder, there's a segment, I believe, during the Trading Bunch where they're talking about what jerseys they would like from people across the hockey world. And Cheryl Pounder mentioned she would love to get a jersey from Angela James. And lo and behold, the TSN broadcast surprises Cheryl with Angela James bringing out a jersey. I understand some people are like, oh, it would have been nice if she had brought out a jersey from her actual playing days. But just to have a living legend in the sport of hockey, regardless of male or female, show up and do that, like, that gave me chills, and I felt a little bit emotional watching that. And Cheryl obviously got very emotional. That was one of the best things I've seen all week. And I know Coach Cal, he deserves some love too. He pumped up the boys and girls and all that. But Angela James coming out, getting her flowers, getting her respect, and doing that, I think that was a really cool gesture, and that deserves stick taps. Absolutely. That was really cool. That was great.
Nice. Well, I'm going to give a stick tap and a coffee cheers to our listener, Adil Saeed.
Yes.
Apologies if I mispronounced your name, Adil, but former colleague, it turns out, of producer Nick at Walmart like a decade ago. But
Walmart.
Like, the world is just so small, man. Like, stuff like this happens. But Adil, he messaged me on Instagram, and we went back and forth a little bit, and he made this sort of rendering. I don't know if you saw it, of me with the hat and the sunglasses, and that's
I did,
Ridic, and that's Ridic, and it just looks so cool. And like, it came through my timeline, and I was like, that's awesome. Like, I can't believe someone would take the time to do that. So he brightened my day with that. It looks kind of cool. I'd love to put it on a t-shirt or something, but I don't know how that works because obviously it's not my property, even though it's my likeness. But thanks, Adil, for listening and for taking the time and putting your creative talents to bad use by rendering me.
No, I don't know about bad use. I think you did an absolute great job. I mean, obviously you're saying that, but like, your face is nice to render, I assume. So yeah, shout out to Adil. Really great job. Shout out to all the listeners who tuned in for our last few episodes and made them as popular as they were, whether on YouTube, whether on whatever podcasting platforms you listen on. We hope you're able to kind of at least sustain that same energy for this one, of course. I realize we plugged a lot of things in this podcast, so Adam Wild has a lot of work to do, I think. But dude, a pleasure to do these episodes with you all the time. We'll be back on Monday with Ask CJ and other fun stuff as we continue to race over to the Stanley Cup playoffs. We have to get through the rest of this regular season, but the postseason on the way. And CJ, if it's anything like how you feel it's going to be, like we could be in for a Ridic postseason.
It's going to be Ridic, bud. And I'm telling you, this might be a mail it in March for CJ. So like the rest of March into April, you're going to have to carry me a little bit. We might even do a whole podcast where we don't even talk about hockey.
Hold on. You want me to help you carry this podcast, but you are also so quick to ship me off to Noxie and Cax. By the way, no shade to those two. That'd be great to hang out with those two individuals who have a fantastic podcast. By the way, actually, you know what? I'm not even mad we would want to trade me there, because their episode that's supposed to drop today, or is already probably dropped by the time you're listening to this one, is supposed to feature a pretty prominent guest. Do you know who it is?
I do not. I don't get all the company emails. 3 letters.
MPP.
I know who that is.
Yes.
Marie-Philippe Poulin.
Yeah, man. So you know what?
Canada's
I don't mind being loaned.
Score.
I don't mind being loaned out to the Noxie and Cax podcast to sit in on the GOAT conversation with one of the GOATs, if not the GOAT of hockey in this country. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, subscribe to the SDPN YouTube page. Subscribe to all the podcasts you can get on the SDPN, whether it's the Chris Johnston Show, whether it's Agent Provocateur with Alan Walsh, whether it's Noxie and Cax, whether it's even the Steve Dangle podcast, because I'm sure they need all the help they can get. Just a small podcast, just trying to build up their names. They can, and Steve,
I like trying to make good in the world.
Yeah, I like that Steve guy. He's just some young guy just trying to make it for himself. He's got a family, got to take care of all that, man. A big house. I get it. He's trying to make this podcast thing work. We support the brother. Support him.
My next episode, I'm going to be in West Palm on Monday, bud. So I might be in like Florida flowery shirt. Maybe I'll bring the sunglasses back. Look out.
So Florida CJ, we had Vino CJ. You're just adding to the AKAs I'll eventually bring out again, man, because all your different alter egos, like they've really popped up this week.
I'm going to bring a vibe on Monday. I'm telling you.
All right, then I better get ready to bring a vibe on Monday too. And if you're going to bring a vibe, then I definitely have to bring some fun questions for Ask CJ, which you can already get started with tweeting at Reporter Chris with the hashtag Ask CJ, or if you are on our Discord, go on the CJ Show questions channel and just dump whatever questions are there. Some people have already started to do that. Feel free to do more of that. For CJ, I'm Julian saying so long and peace. We'll see you on Monday. Brand new episode of The CJ Show.
The Chris Johnston Show. Inside the game, twice a week. Follow Chris on Twitter @ReporterChris. And follow Julian McKenzie @JK McKenzie.